श्री श्री आनंदमयी मात की जय. Together with the cessation of speech, the number of kriyas gradually decreased and then stopped completely. This body remained absorbed in herself during the time left after completing the daily domestic chores. Then, irrespective of whether or not the initial mantra stayed in her consciousness, it was repeated automatically in the throat by the action of the uvula, making a sound like the ticking of a clock. When this process began, this body was inclined to query the nature of this activity. The answer emerged on its own. The sound is that of the Bij mantra. This process continued with each breath. Sometimes there would be no kriya but a change in breathing. Later, when this process ceased, it was seen that the automatic repetition of japa on its own and its consequent cessation made no difference to this body, for after all, both activities were the same. Both the external and the internal activity resulted in identical progress. But supposing, for example, one of you agitatedly approached this body during an emergency, such as an accident, then all of a sudden this japa would reappear momentarily in the throat. You must know that this body is never in any state of agitation. You can take this to mean that the self, Atma, stood behind the revelation of the Bij mantra, maintaining absolute equilibrium. Later, even this stopped. Things continued in this manner. One day, on going to Usha Didi's home, I found her reading a book. Through signs, as I was in Mona, I asked her what book she was reading. She replied, Mahabharata. She asked if I would like to read it and handed me one volume which I brought home. I had no habit of reading books and no inclination towards reading either. When I first went to live at Bholanath's home, he had given me a book, but seeing that I read only a few pages very haltingly and struggled to understand the simplest language, he never again tried to persuade me to read any further. That day, when I opened the book I had brought from Usha Didi and tried to read, I found that the moment I looked at the letters of the alphabet, the Bij mantra stopped inside my throat. When I fixed my mind on the Bij mantra, I could not make out the letters even by looking at them. Nor was there any urge to find out what they were. Looking at the letters made me feel like I was choking and could hardly breathe. Then I would heave a sigh and start panting. If I looked at a letter again, I could make out a glow around it. Then another faint glowing letter would appear beside that which would be white and lustrous. At times, when looking at one particular letter, I noticed that the next one would disappear completely and the Bij mantra resumed once again. It was not possible to read a line, and so I returned the book. Actually, once the real japa takes over, then there is no further inclination to speak, read, hear, or see anything. When I was attentive, I could make out that the Naam continued even I was eating. When my hands were busy doing some work, the divine name would still continue. Whether I paid any attention to it or not, it continued, accompanied by the ticking sound. Gradually, it was seen that the duration of samadhi kept increasing and the Bij mantra did not continue all the time. I was not aware when it would stop. If I tried to bring it back, it would not occur properly, but would keep eluding me. Then all of a sudden, it would appear again. You should understand from this condition that if one sincerely pursues one's goal steadfastly, then even though many obstructions arising out of one's sanskaras appear to distract, the person's sincerity guides him to his goal. शिष्यानंदमयी मात की जय।